This is the original esport racing game. This is iRacing.
Last week at Zandvoort, we were pleasantly surprised at the amount of passing and action the narrow Dutch track produced. Today, a circuit with a similar reputation is placed in front of our drivers. But these little SRFs are not like the more powerful cars that often battle here at Mid-Ohio. With Dimmel up to an astonishing 5 wins out of 6 races attended, the other competitors must use any opportunity to overtake that they can get. Can they stop the incredible momentum of our championship leader? We'll find out soon as we get ready to watch round 10 of the Weekend Warriors, and you'll see it all live here on the Global Sim Racing channel and the iRacing Esports Network. Hi, I'm Joe Peak, and with me in the booth is Adam Young. Behind the scenes is our director, the Dr. Amjad Yaman, and he's using cameras provided by Dougie Beard. Adam, we're back at my home track, and I have to admit, I've got a big smile on my face coming into today's race.
Yeah, you always do when you come here. I mean, I think I've called numerous races with you here, and you're always excited about it. Well, Mid-Ohio is a great place to put on a race. That's definitely for sure. And these Spec Racer Fords should put on a pretty good show. And actually, with a couple of areas where they might be able to pull off a few sneaky passes and a few more longer straights, and like what we saw at Zandvoort last week. But Mid-Ohio itself, been around for quite a few years, opened back in 1962, has undergone a few reiterations, a few widenings in places, and, to allow things like Indy cars and, IMSA and stuff like that to run here. And, of course, also motorcycles run here. But today in the Spec Racer Ford, we're running the full layout, all the turns, all 13 of them for 2.25 miles around here. Let's go ahead and take a lap around Mid-Ohio in the GSRC SRF.
All right, we've got Kevin Brown behind the wheel of the GSRC SRF, so let's do a lap around Mid-Ohio. As we come down the pit straight and approach turn 1, you're faced with one of the fastest corners on the track straight away. This corner requires precision and some bravery because you gotta just nudge that inside curb and avoid pushing wide on exit. But it's important to carry your speed out of that corner because now we're heading towards the keyhole, and if someone has a run on you, you're vulnerable to a pass attempt. Big braking zone here, and on the surface, this looks like a straightforward 180-degree turn. But the crest on the first half can cause the car to do weird things. Regardless, with this corner leading onto the backstretch, squaring off the exit and getting a good launch is critical. The draft is going to be a big factor all the way down this straightaway, so expect cars to be going side by side throughout the race. Notice the little kink in the middle here. With 2 wheels off in the grass, Kevin shows why you can't stop paying attention even if it's a flat-out corner. Then we brake for China Beach. Inside, outside, doesn't matter where you attack or defend, because either way, it can be done here. That's because now we switch back to the entry for madness with this super blind left-hander. If no one's giving up, you'll see those 2 wide battles continuing all the way through these S's. A little bit of a slide for Kevin as we dive under the Honda bridge and towards the braking for turn 9. This is a tough one because the little bend for turn 8 makes it a curved braking zone. Get the car straight so you can be on the power over this rise, and now we've hit Thunder Valley. TVs don't do the change in elevation justice here. You've got a long uphill climb to 11, which is another fast and blind bend, and also very single file. Pushing wide here can easily end your day prematurely. Before you know it, now you're braking for the carousel. There's a lot of ways you can take this, but in Kevin's line you can see he takes a bit too much curb and unsettles the car. Regardless, you want to get a strong run, straighten out the kink of 13, and cross the line to finish your lap around Mid-Ohio.
Good old Kevin Brown taking us around Mid-Ohio. Now, the Weekend Warriors are brought to you by the Hallett Race Shop. The Hallett Race Shop is located at the Hallett Racetrack near Tulsa, Oklahoma. They're a full-service SRF shop, an authorized customer service rep for SCCA Enterprises, and the owners of the Hallett Racetrack. You can find out more information about them at hallettracing.net if you want to get in touch and see if they can help you out. A big thank you to them for sponsoring this season of the Weekend Warriors. The championship has been a fascinating one, if a little bit one-sided, at least in this half of it. Sven Demmel, as we mentioned, still up at the top of the points. Sadro with a fourth-place finish last round loses more points to him. But again, Demmel can't really do much more in terms of having bad races. He's got to keep up these good finishes if he wants to take the championship. There's been no changes in the top 5 except for Jason Perry, who pops on there with his podium finish last week, and yet he is still 97 points down from Sven Demmel. Let's take a look at the Spec 2 Championship. Adam, how's that shaping up?
Yeah, well, no surprise, Donald Federer, you'll find him on top there. The race, as it has been for quite a while now, has all been for second on back, and even that's starting to see a little bit of separation. Once you get outside of second and third, Ryan Sorrell and Ramon Regalado continue to swap that place. They have the last few rounds, and now, of course, the separation, as I mentioned, from 4th to 5th, Jim McGill and Ed Doherty will round out your top 5, but they have a pretty good battle in points between them as well, and actually, pretty good battle even going a little further back in these point standings as well. S2, very competitive this year.
Yeah, glad to see that. And, well, if you've never seen one of these races, let's give you the rundown on the event details. The setups on the SRFs are open. However, you can see there that 35% fuel. That means they've shrunk the fuel cells effectively here in the simulator so that you can't have as much fuel as the real cars have. Now, they've done that because this 40-minute race needs to have at least one scheduled pit stop. They'll come in for fuel and head back out, which is unusual compared to what the real ones do, since they tend to run start to finish. But it does produce some fascinating action out on track for us. They've rationed the points so that the winner always gets 100 and the person in last place always gets 25 points. And then they also have penalty points for incidents. They try to keep them on track as much as possible. Going to be difficult at a windy place here like Mid-Ohio. 3 points lost for each 10 incident points you have out on track. They also have a free repair waiting in the pits if they get damage. We've seen plenty of people use that over the time that we've covered this series, and I expect we'll see at least a few more use it today in what is a very tough track to race. This race is, of course, brought to you on the iRacing Esports Network. And if you'd like to see more of the Weekend Warriors on that, well, you should subscribe. All you got to do is click the big red button that says subscribe, and then you'll get every week of the Weekend Warriors in your YouTube feed. Taking a look at the qualifying. Don't you just hate this, Adam? We have one of the drivers that didn't get a lap of practice in, shows up in qualifying, and immediately to the top of the board. Sven Demmel is back, and he's on the front row already.
Yeah, you know, not only on the front row, I mean, he's starting to chip away at the very actually large qualifying lead that Richard Yallen had. And he's already just about 3 tenths behind him, where before he was about 5 or 6 tenths. So there you go. I mean, Sven Demmel knows these cars. He is dang quick at them. And Richard Yallen, he's have a run for his money here for today. Now, we also can't discount the likes of Steven Elson and Stevie Ray. In fact, Stevie Ray just involved in an incident out there on track. But you know, those guys are showing some speed as well in both practice and qualifying here for today. Stevie Ray could very well be a dark horse going into today.
I'm kind of impressed by that, too. Though Stevie has at times qualified within the top 10, for him to be all the way up to 4th really says something about how good he is at this track. Jerry McAreevy, another one of our rivals for the championship, is currently sitting 5th in the timing, so he's going to want to do probably a little bit better than that. And Sadro's actually just behind him in 6th. Both of them have got to find something to get up to Sven Demmel. And we always talk about the draft being a factor, but I mean, Is it enough of it here on that backstretch down to China Beach? Do you think we'll see some trains, or can someone pull away?
Yeah, I don't know if we're going to necessarily see trains, but I think we can maybe get 2 or 3 cars to try to stick together through there. But, I mean, that definitely leads into the best passing zone. I mean, going into turn 4 there, like you mentioned, China Beach, and that's going to be the best place to make a move. Now, you've got a couple of other areas that could be making moves, and a couple of areas where you might have a little bit of draft, particularly going down from turn 1 going into the keyhole. But outside of that, I mean, you're going to be limited. Now, that's not to say we won't see passes, because there's a couple different places. Like I tend to think of like turn 9 as you lead into Thunder Valley, that I think is a good place for people to try to maybe sneak a move in. But it's not going to be a prime passing spot, just kind of like one of those little sneaky ones. If you're not paying attention, somebody will nip at you.
Well, everybody will have to keep their heads up. And, well, I think the flags are up today. Let's take a poke at the weather. And yeah, Adam, I suddenly looked at one of the flags, because obviously we're not physically in the space, so we don't always really notice when things are extreme. 23 miles an hour. My goodness.
Which, I'll be honest, Joe, like, in iRacing with that 23-mile-an-hour wind, that's actually realistically probably closer to 30 miles an hour. And that's a lot of wind. And that's maybe the most I've ever broadcasted a race for. That's high. And, of course, you add to that the track temperature of about 101 degrees. Whew, these cars are going to be moving around.
Yeah, I wonder if that'll throw a few people for a loop. We saw Amjad giving us a good shot of some of those flags on the pit lane. Really, really straight and blowing. And it's hot on track as well with that 101 degrees. This is going to be a fascinating one to watch how it plays out. Sven Dimmel's up onto the pole now. He's overtaken Richard Yolland by about a tenth. We're on board with the championship leader, who is currently working his way towards the end of the lap. I know Richard Yolland just coming across the line now, but he's not going to set a time that time around, it looks like. Elson, in the meantime, running in P3. This is a nice run from the number 56 car. And he sets a lap just now as well, 46.2. So that looks like an out lap for him. He's got enough time for a couple more to put in there.
Just looking at these times here, Joe, I mean, you get outside that, I would say probably the top 5, your distance between each other really starts to tighten up. I mean, we've got right now 4 guys that have ran 37.7 lap times. That's Bradshaw, Shuck, Murakami, and Kern. It's 4 guys are all within a tenth of a second here at a track like Mid-Ohio. So very well could be seeing nice mid-pack battles here today.
And those are actually significant names, because at least in the case of Adam and Nico, they're in 8th and 9th. That's actually 1st and 2nd in the Spec 2 race. So with them being so tight together, well, that should give us some fun in that battle. Right on board with Daniel Sadro, who's been bumped all the way to 7th.
Which leads to another point about the Spec 2 battle, and who I do not see out there right now, and that would be Donald Federer.
Well, that will also potentially come into play. Sadro's last lap not faster than his 37.5. He's about a tenth off, and he is trying to hustle the car. 3.5 minutes left to go. This is Tom Gradwell in 15th, and is actually coming into the pits. Now, actually, the pit entry and pit exit aren't the worst we've seen on iRacing, but I have seen both of those catch drivers out. I guess the exit more so just blending into traffic.
Yeah, the exit can definitely be tough here. You know, when you're going through turn 12, the carousel there, you kind of know that if somebody's hanging to the outside there, that they might be coming down pit road. But the exit of pit road here dumps you right into turn 1, and if somebody's not too careful or trying to run that little curbing that's right at the inside of turn 1 every little bit, it gets to be it can be challenging if you have a car coming out of pit road right there and somebody's not paying attention.
Hopefully everybody is today, since we do know that pit stops are expected. Well, this is a very good qualifying for Bob Kern, who's coming around the carousel right now, and he's dragging along second place Richard Yolland with him. See if either of them have a good lap this time by 38.1, so that's a little slow for Bob. But for Richard, that one did not count, sadly, so he's got to go around a second time. Just 2 minutes left on the clock. Looking to see, surprised to see James DeBoer as high as he is. Typically, he's more of a mid-pack driver, but 6th place is very, very good showing from the 91 today. He's going to continue on his qualifying. A lot of drivers out right now trying to get times in, thinking they could get those last few tenths. Sven Demmel being one of them, but he does not improve that time by. He will retain his pole position, obviously.
Antonio Reese is one guy that would like to try to grab another spot or two. Jiricek is only about 0.03 of a second in front of him. Wayne Palmer back there in 19th position in the Spec 2 class. He's got a few guys that are within range of him, I believe.
But one thing I hadn't noticed when I was looking at Bob Kern's time, he's one of our Spec 2 drivers. He's actually taken the Spec 2 pole away from Bradshaw, and by 4/100ths of a second. Now, Bob has taken it into the pits. The 206 will not be able to get another lap in. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, this is actually might be why Richard Yolland here might not be able to beat his time. We're going to watch him when he comes across the line. But going into turn 2, the keyhole there on that last lap, see if he's able to... Nope. In fact, a couple of tenths slower. Bob Kern was actually on the outside of him, so he wasn't able to really kind of get that entry into turn 2 that he was really wanting that time by. So that it's run wide right there. And then Bob Kern was immediately involved in the accident right after.
It's a little wide coming out of turn 1 again. Adam Bradshaw's last lap is not able to take Spec 2 pole away from Bob Kern. So he'll get one more try. 20 seconds left on the clock. And time is running out. Sven Demmel, I think, is going to be able to sneak by. No, he's not, because he's going to end his qualifying. He's coming into the pits. Stevie Ray.
And Yolland did too, so that's your front row.
Interesting. Stevie Ray comes by, starts one final lap just as the time ticks by. And I see that Jeff Jacobson is going to complete his. That lap not going to count for him. Dominique Bureau is going to abandon his lap. Andy Spicer going to be the next one across. Let's see if he can improve on that 24th place. A 41.6 is his fastest, but it does not improve his position. Paulo Preto. Actually, it did improve his... Oh, no, it did not improve his position. Paulo Preto will be starting 22nd. 39.6 is his fastest lap, but he doesn't jump up the order. We're watching Jerry McAreevy on screen. He's coming around the carousel. He sits in third. He could be the most likely to try and get onto the front row with Yolland and Demmel. Let's see what it is. No, it's a 37.3, slower than his 37.2 from earlier in the session. Murakami coming across, and Doherty ahead of him just sets his first time of the session. Good enough for 21st for him. Murakami's last lap sadly did not count. Must have had an off track somewhere. And I believe that's it.
Yeah, especially now Murakami put a wheel off there, and it's done. So we can finally call the grid.
All right, we'll go through your starting orders. Sven Demmel will be first today on the pole, with Richard Yolland starting in second place. Next to him, Jerry McAreevy, probably the best position to try and challenge for the championship based on today's race, starting from third with Steve Elson in P4. Then it's Stevie Ray in sixth place. James DeBoer starts... Stevie Ray in fifth place. James DeBoer is in sixth place. Row 4 has Miroslav Jiricek inside and Daniel Sadro on the outside. Sadro, our second place driver in the points right now, but not looking at a good start unless he can gain a lot of positions early. Bob Kern will be 9th, and then Adam Bradshaw will start 10th.
Looking at 11th place on back, we find Nico Schuk, who ended up in 11th position. Chris Murakami in 12th. Antonio Reese coming in at 13th position. Ian Haycock's 14th, outside of row 7. And inside of row 8 is going to be Ryan Sorrell. Then alongside him will be Tom Gradwell, Jeff Jacobson, Dominique Barreau. Make up row 9. And Wayne Palmer and Francois Van Dornveld in row 10.
Edward Doherty got his lone qualifying lap in to put him in 21st. Gary Wobold will be 22nd. Then you have Paulo Prado starting 23rd and William Marshall 24th. Andy Spicer was the last car to get a lap in 25th position. And looks like Joshua Borges-Bonkowski is not in the session right now. I do not believe he's going to be starting the race. And you can see how much these trees are just waving around in this incredible wind. This will certainly be a little bit of foreign territory for some of these drivers having to deal with these conditions. It doesn't seem like the wind is gusting different directions too much, thankfully, though.
No, just out of the southeast. And now, one thing, too, that I would point out, though, is that sometimes during these sessions, weather conditions do change a little bit. Now, it's not consistently up there, but I've seen that wind kind of bump up to like 24 miles an hour a few times. I've been watching it. And track temperatures also come down just a couple degrees between qualifying and race. So we'll see if that helps the cars handle any better, but I still expect some slip sliding out there.
I do as well. You can see they don't do a full pace lap here at Mid-Ohio, just through the last couple corners, working their way up and over turn 11 out of Thunder Valley into the carousel, and then coming on the front stretch to take away.
And that's the other note, too, is many races here at Mid-Ohio, they'll start on the backstretch, coming out of that little kink that they call turn 3. But here, nope. In iRacing, we're going to start on the front stretch.
Yeah, in the last broadcast we did here, I was calling for iRacing to hopefully implement that someday, since they do have different starting and finish lines, but we'll see. Regardless, the pace car leads them up to the pit entry where it ducks away, and Sven Demmel now has control. Green flag comes out immediately, and it looks like there was a little bit of a look from Jerry McReevy for third, but he gets a bad run at the green flag, and that puts him under threat from Stevie Ray and Steve Elson. Ray backs out of it as he gets into the back of him.
Contact with Yalin and McReevy.
Both of them off the course into the wall hard.
Oh, and Stevie Ray's involved, Elson's involved.
Wow, so that promotes Miroslav Juracek up to second place before they even get to the second corner. James DeBoer now in third. Daniel Sadro suddenly sees the C's part, and he's up to P4, but he's under threat from Adam Bradshaw, our Spec 2 leader, as they come down the backstretch.
Lots of big names taken out in turn 1. Now, if you're Sven Demmel, nobody behind you, just to be frankly honest, has been able to hold a candle to your pace. You just get in a rhythm, you start turning laps, you start trying to pull away, and just don't make any mistakes.
To steal an appropriate phrase for today, that took the wind out of our sails, as that now means it's pretty much an open goal for Sven Demmel to run away with this thing, unless Juracek really ramps up his ability. The good news for the drivers that wrecked is they have that spare car, Adam.
Well, you know, and you bring up the open goal, running to it kind of thing, and as a basketball coach, I have to say it, sometimes the toughest layup to make is the one where you don't have anybody on you. So all Sven Demmel just has to be mistake-free, but it's a prime opportunity to make mistakes because you think you're okay. It's a mental thing.
Absolutely. We'll see how he handles it. He's certainly been far out in front before, so I assume that he's got some experience running alone. Let's jump a little bit farther back in the pack to 7th, because Murakami and Kern are fighting for P6 here. They're coming up to the keyhole with Murakami taking a little bit of a look to the inside, and he's going to easily outbrake Kern for that spot.
Yeah, Bob Kern going with a little bit of a different look out there here for today. So now kind of running the red and white car there, as opposed to the usually the one that I think it's a state flag or state crest or something that's usually on his car. I can't remember which one, but yeah, he's running a little different look.
Oh, and Kern finds himself under attack from Antonio Reese, who sticks it up the inside through China Beach. He's going to hang around the outside as they come into Madness. And finally, he gets that pass done. Kern moving a little bit backwards. That car back off track that you saw is Tom Bradwell. Oh, and he gets hits. That was Wayne Palmer who got into him.
And Wayne just had nowhere to go.
Yeah, that's a narrow and blind part of the track for sure.
I mean, he was already committed to that corner and just, and that was it. I don't think he was expecting him to kind of come back up on the track the way he did. But while we're on the GSRC replay, might as well go ahead and take a look at the start of this race here, Joe. And fireworks right off the beginning. Lap one, it seemed like Yalin really tried to get the jump and lagged back a little bit on Sven Demmel. And as he comes through turn one, realizes it's not there, starts to try to come back down, but Macarivi was already there. And of course, Yalin rolls into the Armco. And in the avoidance of that, we saw contact between Stevie Ray and Steven Elson. Elson went wide to try to avoid what he thought might be cars trying to come back across the track, and ended up finding Stevie Ray when he went out there, lost it, and came back onto him. So tough break for those guys.
Yeah, you could see how monster of a crash for all parties involved. I'm glad you pointed that out about Yalin maybe trying to back the corner up, because initially I thought it was that Macarivi went in too deep, but from onboard Stevie Ray's view, you could see he stayed with him under braking. So
yeah,
he made the right call.
Yeah, it was one of those things that was like, that actually started way back before the start of the race even. I mean, it was going back through turn 13 on the run up to the green flag. It's just, he was trying to do something with Sven Demmel, maybe try to get a little bit of a jump, and it just precipitated into turn one action.
Sorry, on screen, our leader in the Spec 2, Adam Bradshaw, just got almost turned around by James DeBoer while he was going for the podium. I was keeping an eye on that while listening to you talk about the incident. That could have gone so much worse, but how much damage do both of those drivers have?
Yeah, it doesn't look like there's a lot on Bradshaw's car. Looking at James's car, James has been able to show some speed here for today, but he did beat up his right front air dam there just a little bit.
I'm kind of surprised that James stayed into that as we watched the onboard on the replay. I understand him wanting to try and fight for it, but I feel like I probably would have backed out of it, but then I'm kind of a timid driver when it comes to that stuff. We're already about 5 minutes into this race, and Demmel's stretched it out to 4.5 seconds over Juracek, who is pushing with the car dipping into the grass every so often. There you see our championship and race leader, the number 22, romping away with this one. We got a lot of action back in the mid-pack. Ian Haycox, Ryan Sorrell, Bob Kern, all in a nice little fight as they were coming into China Beach. Look at this string of 4 cars. At the back of it, that's Dominique Bureau. They now head through Madness and the S's to the jump. Looks like they've calmed down slightly for the moment now that they're in the twistier portion of the circuit. They're being chased by Ed Doherty. Certainly came in late for qualifying, but has fared well here in the race.
Hey, Joe, I want to go. You're talking about the lap 1 accident there, and of course how hard of a hit Steven Elson took. Let's go to Steven Elson just real quick. He did not come down pit road. That SRF that he is driving right now looks like it's been through just a grinder. He is running lap times that are comparable to guys in your top 5 right now, and he still has this faster pair to use. So he's making up spots. He's getting maybe 24 seconds off the, well, 26 seconds now off the lead, but he's going to be a guy to watch to see how he can recover on a recovery drive here. He could very well have a shot at a top 10 as we go through the day.
These close-up shots of the car really drive home how beat up it is. That is amazing that he's driving so well. That could really pay off once he takes his spare car at the pit stops. We'll see how Elson handles everything, considering how well he qualified. And let's go back to Bob Kern in 9th place. He and Sorrell are side by side coming down to China Beach again, with Sorrell on the outside of the first corner, but he's going to have the inside as they come to Madness. Still, you can see Kern carrying the momentum in the first part of the corner. Sorrell comes back at him. The track switches back to a right-hander, and Sorrell with a beautiful move to take 8th place.
And Kern shut the door on Haycox there. Haycox could do nothing with him.
Ian back into line, and they've been joined at the back by Doherty, who sits in 12th position, watching this string of cars fight it out, sizing them up, seeing what's in store for him. Look at the variety of lines they all take through the carousel. And yet they're all still in order when they come out the other side. Here we go again, coming up to the longer straights of the track, up to the keyhole, and then out of it down to China Beach. Let's stay with this.
You know, Bob Kern's one guy that I think right now it's like his car just, I don't think he's happy with his car right now. It's not driving as fast overall as it did in practice and qualifying, at least not as smooth looking. And on top of that, too, he actually has a net loss of positions. I mean, right now he's gridded. I mean, he's running right where he gridded in 9th spots. But you got to remember, 4 guys in front of him got taken out. Right now, our biggest mover are the likes of Bradshaw up 5 spots, Murakami up 6 spots, Reese also up 6 spots, while Kern has lost spots to all those guys.
Bureau to the inside into China Beach on Haycox.
Oh,
Haycox way too deep.
Not sure if his car got loose and he tried to catch it there, but that's going to hold up that pack there. Sorrell, that's what he wants to see. That'll give him a chance maybe to pull away a little bit here from him.
Yeah, I'm sure he'd love to break this train, and this looks like his best opportunity. But unfortunately for Ian Haycox, that move cost him, as instead of gaining a spot, he moves back 2. Let's go up to 2nd place, because that's another train, and Miroslav Juracek is at the front of that. Then you look behind him. Tabor runs 3rd. Sadro runs 4th. Adam Bradshaw, our Spec 2 leader, is 5th overall. Murakami's caught the train, and now Antonio Reese makes it a 6-car run. Come out of turn 1. Juracek, to his credit, is holding them at arm's length. And Tabor has not really been able to get up and threaten him, just kind of keeping him within tow. They'll work their way onto the long backstretch, the longest acceleration zone of the track. A little bit of blinking from James Tabor. Car comes back solidly, though, and nobody's really poking their nose out.
Not yet. One guy that just poked his nose out going down there is going to be Dominic Barreau.
At the back of the screen, Antonio Reese spun and lost out. You can see he's going to lose positions to Sorrell, that second group, and finally is able to get going again before Kern gets to him. That checks up the cars behind. Bureau, as you mentioned, under attack from Edward Doherty as they're side by side, Adam.
Yeah, those guys now fighting extremely hard. That with Reese almost still getting up to speed when they caught up to him and really nowhere else to go. I thought for a second that might be their chance to jump over Kern, but that's not going to happen. But the big loser in all that is Dominique Barreau, as he's going to fall back to that pack.
Here we're going to watch the onboard from Reese. Good job recovering the car and get it moving again. It's just unfortunately everything happened so fast he couldn't stop from losing a position in that 77. So that removes 1 car from that top train. And actually might have removed 2 because
way off. He's going to grab a few cones. That might give Tabor here what he needs to maybe get a run up into the keyhole. He's going to take a look. Is he going to be able to do anything with it? He's going to stick his nose down to the inside. He's going to hold it there. Juracek, though, is going to have a run on the outside. They might have made a little bit of contact. I just saw the fender go up on Juracek's rear end. Just a touch. I don't see any damage on Tabor's end, but that's going to give him another run here going to China Beach. Going down into China Beach. Sadro giving Juracek a little bit of a bump draft. Bradshaw's going to try to look at this. No, they're going to try going 3 wide.
They hit. Tabor ran in to Juracek. And he's off track.
Ooh. That's what I get for being about a second or 2 behind.
It's okay. It was Sadro giving a bump draft to Tabor down the straight, absolutely shoved him into the corner, probably not intentionally, and Chris Murakami, who I thought was losing out and losing the draft, picks his way through, threads the needle, and finds himself in P2.
Oh, and don't forget, I mean, Tabor, I mean, he was able to recover actually probably nicer than anybody else involved in that, but now he's got a lot more damage on his car. His car, every lap, seems like it's looking more and more like what Elson's is, just saying. But that one there, that's a tough one.
This is wreck avoidance. Look at that. Sees part, and the Northwest driver has a nice clear view in front of him.
Okay, speaking of Elson, by the way, because we're going to watch his recovery drive. He did decide to come down pit road right at the beginning of the pit window, so he'll be the first one to pit.
I think some of those other drivers involved in that incident have as well, because Bradshaw's fallen off and Sadro's fallen off. Murakami is essentially now all on his lonesome. You can see Elson returned in about 22nd spot. There's our leader. All the action that's happened behind him has meant that the gap is now up to 11.5 seconds between himself and Murakami. So, is this layup going to be a slam dunk, Adam? Do you still think he's going to somehow miss the hoop on this one?
Well, you know, he did make a few mistakes at Zandvoort, whether he remembers them or not. We saw them; it happened. But, you know, race car drivers can sometimes have that short memory. But today, though, I mean, completely mistake-free. He is just running his line, doing perfectly.
Here we see the battle for, well, sort of for the Spec 2 lead. Bradshaw's in Spec 2. Sadro is not. Sorrell's behind them. He is in Spec 2, so he could try and run those two down. And I'm sure Bradshaw would like to keep the car between himself and his Spec 2 rival, but they're both going to continue on as they come past the pits, work their way back through turn one once again. See, Ian Haycox is going to take his stop. Number 235 is in pit lane. I think James Tabor should be our highest pitter, even with Haycox taking his. Also, Gary Wobolt looks like he's found pit lane. So a number of drivers taking an early stop, at least early-ish compared to what we've seen in the past. These 40-minute races tend to see drivers try to go at least halfway. Not so today, as we join with Bradshaw once more, being chased by Sadro for the podium position. And no surprise here, Stevie Ray has taken his stop already. Let's jump a little bit backwards to the mid-pack. Dominique Bureau now finds himself in the eighth position with Bob Kern chasing him down. But don't forget Jerry McAreevy. Now, I believe Jerry still has to take a second stop, unless he actually... Did he get out of that first incident without much damage? Because I'm not seeing much on the car. Unless he took a spare car. Oh, he's coming in now. There we go. Okay. So Jerry McAreevy follows Bob Kern and actually is trying to pass him in the pit lane. And this is a problem for Bob Kern.
Have to sort that out.
Yeah, Kern, I was going to say, is going to have to stop before him, so he has to lift and let McAreevy by.
The car that was pulling out there, that was Daniel Sadro. He's returning to the racetrack.
He now becomes our highest pitter, but just barely. James Tabor is going to follow him out of turn one. And I think now that the time is settling out, it looks like 2.5 seconds between the 51 and the 91.
You know, they came in together side by side down pit road, and Kern ended up being a big loser on that one. He is well behind what McAreevy is.
He was 12 seconds longer in his stall. So I'm not sure what caused Bob Kern to have to wait longer, but he's come out with Ian Haycox, who he was fighting with before. So we're looking at Reese currently fighting with, I believe this is Sorrell, for 4th place. Both of these drivers have yet to stop. Getting very close to that halfway mark. They work their way out of the Thunder Valley over turn 11. A little bit of a look to the inside from Ryan, but not a serious attempt. Ryan certainly applying the pressure. He is awful close here on the front stretch. Usually turn 1 isn't much of a passing zone, but let's see what he does off the corner. Stays right with him. He's in the tire tracks. And he's close, but I don't think the draft is quite enough up to the keyhole. Looks into it anyways. They've got lap traffic in front. That's Paulo Prado, who's finished his pit stop. He's just going to pull over and let them through. Picking up speed once more. Plunging downhill through the kink to China Beach. The number 216 of Ryan Sorrell, just a little bit too far back. Still waiting on our top 7 drivers to come in. Nico Schuch has yet to pit. William Marshall has yet to pit. All other drivers have been in and out at least once. A few of them twice now, sadly.
Going to a battle here at P2, Murakami and Bradshaw. Bradshaw all over the back end of Murakami here.
Pushing him through Thunder Valley, given a bump draft. Usually that's not a place where you need a bump draft necessarily, is a tiny lockup from Murakami coming into the carousel. So is Bradshaw even interested in trying to pass Chris right now, or is he just pushing him forward? A little bump draft, giving him all the little bits of extra speed he can. So come uphill to the top here at the keyhole. Wonderful viewing area here in real life for that little hill under the billboard. And then back downhill they go again. And this is where you usually expect a bump draft.
There it is.
It almost seems like Bradshaw's faster. It's hard to tell if it's just the draft doing that. I feel like it almost would behoove him to get in front of Murakami and try to lead the way. Just as Chris with another lockup into China Beach. Bradshaw just, he's content.
Yeah, I'm really surprised he hasn't tried making a little bit more of an aggressive move around him. It just seems like even in the non-draft portions of the racetrack, Bradshaw could just pull up to the back of Murakami at will.
Sven Demmel's completing another lap and electing not to come into the pits. If you're just joining us here for round 10 of the Weekend Warriors, you missed a lap 1 accident that took out a bunch of the championship and race contenders and has left Sven Demmel running all on his own, 18 seconds ahead on one of the windiest days we've ever seen here on GSRC. As we got a pass to the inside, Bradshaw makes it down into turn 1, and Chris Murakami lets him through.
Now, he's not going to be able to do any kind of over-under here going up into the keyhole, but going down on the run in China Beach here in just a second might be able to do a little bit of something. Kind of depends on how well they get off of corner 2 here. And there's Bradshaw able to pull away on exit. So I don't think Murakami will be able to do anything with him here as long as Bradshaw doesn't put any more wheels off into the grass. Yes, I saw that, Mr. Bradshaw.
Well, it certainly looks like Chris doesn't have much of a response with how far back he is there, but he's constantly locking up the tires. Is overheating the tires a concern in these cars, especially at a track like this?
I would be more concerned about the fact that, you know, you still got a track temperature here in 97, even though we're starting to get into a little bit more later in the afternoon. So you got to keep the tires cool, especially when you're trying to worry about things like the S's and all that, because that'll be where handling's key, and you want all the front grip you can get through there.
And we're still continuing on. They have the fuel for that. Typically, we see them go to about 30 minutes into the race of this 40-minute race. This is Antonio Reese, yet to take his, sitting in 4th. Also not interested in the pits. Sorrell, second in the Spec 2 race today, continues on. Looks like everybody who's still out is basically electing to go until the car runs dry.
You know, and we keep bringing up Sven, how he hasn't pitted yet. You know, to be fair, I wouldn't be surprised just in kind of his normal course of driving. I mean, able to do just a touch of fuel saving, not much, but he ran his fastest laps right at the beginning of the race in the 36 range, and has only recently started dropping back down into the 36. It's been running mostly 37, so might be able to stretch it just a touch longer, but I don't know if he's necessarily saved over a lap or anything like that. It certainly will get him to the end.
Let's check in on our drivers who were involved in that lap 1 accident, because remember I said they have the spare car to try and bring them back into the game, just not for a race win, obviously. Jerry McAreevy is the highest of them. He's actually up to 11th, and his pit stop is done. He's the 4th highest car of the drivers who've pitted, Adam. I think McAreevy is not just looking at a potential top 10 here, but he could maybe sneak into the top 5 depending on his pace. He's already looking to overtake Juracek, who had problems later on. Miroslav not going to defend as they come down into China Beach, and they've got traffic in front of them. That's Andy Spicer pulling out of the way.
Ooh, and Juracek had a whale of a time getting through there with Spicer on the outside. But McAreevy, you bring up an interesting point about McAreevy. In that contact there, he was the only one to not have major contact with someone or something. Now, granted, it was his tip of Yalin that sparked the whole thing off, but he was able to just kind of slide the thing to the side and not hit anything further. So he was able to get back on track a little bit faster than everybody else, where the likes of Elson, who is now in 14th position, actually had to come down pit road and take his faster pair, although he did try to stick it out a good long while and was running very competitive lap times with a very beat-up race car.
This is the other car, Steve Elson, who was involved with that, up to 14th and not too far behind McAreevy. Now, he's actually just behind a fierce battle that happened briefly ago. Haycox and Kern were side by side through madness. You could see that Haycox in the green car is the one that came out on top in that fight for 12th place. Elson so far has been fast this weekend, and he's fast off of turn 1. That car you saw off course was Andy Spicer. Oh, and that other car you saw off course was Edward Doherty, who just pit. I'm not sure why he spun. Oh, okay, so Spicer spun. Doherty was exiting the pits, had to take avoiding action. This was just the most unfortunate of timing for Ed Doherty to take his pit stop. All right, we're going to see the New Yorker come out. There goes Spicer. And there goes Spicer again. And there goes Ed Doherty.
He held on to it for a good long while, though.
He was trying. Those arms were flailing. But Doherty, unfortunately, falls to 15th after that incident. Could have been ahead of that Kern-Elson fight, which now has Elson in front, and Elson, going for Ian Haycox. He runs into him, both of them off track. And
Kern off track behind him. Well, he's not going to lose any spots from that, but man, action is just finding Elson today.
I think Elson might have a little visit with the stewards after that one. Stuck his nose in, turned him around, off course, keeps it going, and just keeps his foot in it. Elson a little aggressively up to 11th place.
You know, the real winner there, honestly, even though, you know, he really wasn't able to gain anything other than a spot from Haycox, was Kern. I mean, because great avoiding action, taking it into the grass like that, and able to keep it going straight and not turn the car while you're evading an accident. So good job on Kern.
A little bit of damage caused by that incident on Steve Elson. You could see the rear fender a little bit bent up on that black and gold car. Wonder if that'll hurt his straight line speed enough for Bob Kern to try and take advantage. Oh, and we got pit stops for our top runners. Bradshaw and Murakami have both pitted. Reese stays out. Demmel stayed out. Bureau is going to stay out. Looks like Sorrell will join them. This means only 3 cars will still require a pit stop. Sorrell gets going at the same time as Murakami. But Murakami looks to have lost out on Adam Bradshaw by a big gap. And ahead of all of this is James DeBoer. He just barely jumped Adam Bradshaw. The 91 is still your top pitter. Now let's see, he should be ahead of Bureau and Reese, I believe, once they pit. So James DeBoer should be looking at a second place. You see Murakami comes out in a bit of a fight. Sorrell next to him. Jerry McAreevy on his recovery drive just ahead. Thinking about 3 wide. Ryan Sorrell decides better of it. He lets McAreevy have the apex. Around the outside, Murakami can't hold it off the racing line, and he slots back into 9th.
And here comes our leader, Sven Demmel, down pit road.
Gets to his stall. Oh, fascinating. Antonio Reese is going to keep going. What about Dominic Bureau then? Can we see one more lap? Yeah, indeed. With 10 minutes left to go. Demmel comes in and comes out with no dramas. He's going to be about 5 seconds ahead of Reese, so even though Reese continued, it won't be any sort of hassle for him.
I was going to say that's probably the first time since about lap 3 that anybody's been within sight of Sven Demmel sitting in second. And it took a pit stop to make it happen.
Just incredible pace of that Diaz driver. So Tabor is running 4th. You can see on your screen with Adam Bradshaw running P5, but they should be promoted upwards once we get Reese and Bureau taking their scheduled stops. So does Bradshaw look to try and challenge DeBoer? He should jump Bureau once he pits, who is our only other Spec 2 driver ahead of him. We've seen this song and dance before.
He's really pushing him.
He lets off before they get to the braking zone. I wonder if Bradshaw's looking backwards, if he's thinking, don't want Daniel Sadro to get involved. It's better to have a 2-car fight than a 3-car fight. So let's just cruise together for now until we get to the last couple laps.
Or, just trying to make him to where he really had to break up his backing point because he was going in too fast, and maybe try to get a last-second move going into China Beach. Either way, though, whether it was his plan all along or whatever, but either way, it didn't get him a spot.
Are we sure that Reese and Bureau's fuel tanks were limited to 35%? They both continued for another lap.
We need to run them through. We need to run them through inspection.
I'm trying to remember the last time we've seen someone run this long. I guess this is just not that thirsty of a circuit.
I'll tell you what, though, it's making them have their fastest lap times of the day. Particularly Dominique Bureau just ran his fastest lap time of the day, down to 38.1. So light fuel's doing something for him.
Apparently. And the track may be not hot enough that it's taken the tires away from them to lose them lap time compared to the fuel level, as Bradshaw tries to square off the exit of the keyhole. And he gets a pretty good run. But does he actually want to pass? We're watching from onboard to board. It's like as he gains, they're going to hit the braking zone. Won't even get a bump draft, though, this time, will Bradshaw. Sorrell and Murakami, a little bit of side-by-side action. Murakami manages to get it, but here comes Juracek. Juracek tries a hip check, but it doesn't work out for him as Sorrell continues on, but Miroslav finds himself turned around.
Sorrell's car snapped right back into place and in line so fast. It was almost like swatting a fly almost, where Jiricek ended up facing the wrong way. But he only lost just a touch of time to Murakami and actually still has the potential to try to get back at him.
All right, the 77 and the 208 are finally in pit lane. That's going to hand the Spec 2 lead back to Bradshaw and put him in a podium overall behind Tabor. Sadro's promoted to 4th. McAreevy back up to 5th. Wow.
What is it in NASCAR? You know, it's like if NASCAR sees something they don't like, they take the cars like to their development center or something like that there in North Carolina. We need to take those 2 Spec Racer Fords to the development center.
Oh, and Bradshaw got Tabor through the keyhole. Tabor's going to try and fight back. He looks to the inside. He's got the speed. He's being squeezed all the way down to the grass, though. Bradshaw realizes he's there. He pulls back to the racing line. Up ahead of them, a little bit of lap traffic. Tabor's got the inside of the right-hander. Bradshaw holds it. He's got the...
Tabor breaks loose. I don't know if that was netcode or if Tabor's just lost rear grip, but he's going to lose numerous spots.
All the way down to 8th. From my angle, it did look like netcode. He just...
Bradshaw also just... See what happened to Bradshaw here. Okay, so he had to slow down so much, almost came to a complete stop and just bled positions from there. Almost to the point that I don't know if it was just stuck in gear.
Maybe he was...
Or he was trying to let him back by.
I think he was trying to let the position back by. Because he just gave it back now as we watch the replay from Bradshaw's view. That's very gentlemanly from Adam. Although, based on the netcode, I don't think Adam did anything wrong there.
I don't either.
Oh, we've had an accident with Francois van Doornveld. You know, despite the wind here today, I feel like we've seen far more crashes from cars making contact with each other than losing control.
Yeah, and this is like one of the very few single, nobody's fault but my own offs and accidents that I've seen, and it ended up having to be Dornveld.
So, Jerry McAreevy, who qualified in 3rd, found himself turned into the wall on the very first lap, is now up into 2nd place. Daniel Sadro is back onto the podium. He's notched up a few, but he's still going to lose points to Sven Demmel, and this will only have 2 rounds remaining after today, so he's got to really hope for a miracle if things stay as they are.
Meanwhile, Sven Demmel up by now nearly 30 seconds on Jerry McAreevy, even with the recovery drive. Just an incredible race by Sven Demmel.
I was going to say, yeah, he's taking the Senna route. Just push 100% of the time and not let up, and don't make mistakes that way, because this is just a whipping. Murakami now finds himself P4, but he is at the head of a train. He's got Antonio Reese behind him. Ryan Sorrell's chasing. James DeBoer, who's recovered, is now at the back of it in 7th. And then in 8th place, it's Adam Bradshaw. This is for the Spec 2 lead between Sorrell and Bradshaw. They're split by DeBoer for the moment. Reese is looking very strong off the keyhole. He's right underneath the gearbox of Murakami. So he heads to the outside with Chris defending the right side of the track. Speed getting the nose ahead for the number 77, and Chris is going to brake early and just let him by. I believe we've got 2 laps to go. Yes, indeed. 2 laps left. Sven Demmel just crossing the line now with about 2¼ minutes on the clock. Sven didn't sound like he was too interested in Mid-Ohio coming up this week, but I think maybe his opinion will change a little bit now that he's going to rack up an impressive win. Jerry McAreevy should be relatively happy with this second place considering the circumstances, if he can keep Daniel Sadro behind him at least.
I just look at this top 10 and think about who in the top 10 outside of Sven Demmel did not have some sort of problem here today.
I think Sadro, has he had any dramas? Ooh, look at this action. Side by side between Murakami and Sorrell, Tabor and Bradshaw coming out of the keyhole, and the battle's going to continue down the backstretch. They get it single file for a split second until Sorrell takes another peek on Murakami. But it's to the outside. Murakami fends him off. There's an opportunity, a door opening for James Tabor. He tries to put his foot in, but can't get through. Ryan Sorrell keeps him back. Bradshaw as well doesn't take advantage. White flag waves for Sven Demmel. The number 22 car put it on pole. Had no laps in practice. And we had a problem with Nico Schuk, who was just in front of our leader there.
Very heads up by Nico, knowing what was behind him, not coming back onto the track after he got into the tire barrier there. Oh, he was way... Oh, look at that rear end come off the ground.
That was a hard hit for a last lap for him. So we go to the battle for second, because McAreevy now coming into one of the more vulnerable places up to the keyhole, but Sadro's been hanging back at about half a second most of the time here, Adam. It seems like Sadro's pushing and doesn't have the pace to get in a position to throw one in.
Yeah, if he doesn't hear, I mean, I don't see him doing it at all, and he's too far back, I think, to make a move going into China Beach. So I think he's just content knowing that he's not going to be able to hold McAreevy off, even if he's able to get back behind him. Back by him. Wow, I don't know why I said behind him, but back by him.
Yeah, Jerry went defensive anyways. As we glance at the fierce fighting we've been seeing at the next pack, which is spread apart slightly, but you can see Tabor in a fight with Bradshaw, but we've got to go to our leader because Sven Demmel's already coming around the carousel and across the line to take another victory, 6 out of 7. Jerry McAreevy, not many chances for Sadro to really try and make a pass from here on out, especially with how far back he is. All Jerry needs to do is stay nice and smooth. Out of the carousel. Who would have thought a second place was on the cards for this number 67? But Jerry McAreevy has done it today with a podium. Sadro finishes third. Antonio Reese at the front of that next group with a whole bunch coming across all at once. Murakami, Sorrell, Bradshaw, and Tabor from 4th to 8th. And is Miroslav Juracek out of fuel? Oh, it looks like he did get across the lines. Elson recovers to 11th. Looks like Bob Kern going to follow him home in 12th. Haycox behind them in 13th. Stevie Ray, who was also involved in that opening incident, 16th. He qualified this race 5th. This was one that was sort of slipped through his fingers, I think. And indeed, only one other car finished behind him on the lead lap. That is no, 2 other cars, excuse me. Looks like Francois Van Dorveld and Gary Wobolt will finish behind him. So with that, we're going to take a quick break here on the Global Sim Racing channel. We'll come back with the unofficial results as well as driver interviews. So stick around, and on screen you'll see all the upcoming races here on the GSRC. Welcome back to Mid-Ohio. It was a windy one out here today, but it was a win one for Sven Demmel, who took yet another victory by about 30 seconds over Jerry McAreevy, who, despite being spun around in the first corner, came back and finished in second place. Daniel Sadro finishes third behind him. Coming from 8th place, we certainly played him down a lot in qualifying, but I think he made up for it in the race. Antonio Reese, how about this one? 13th to 4th. And Chris Murakami followed him from 12th to 5th. Ryan Sorrell takes 6th place, and Adam Bradshaw finishes 7th. James Tabor finishes in 8th place. He was apologizing to drivers for sliding back across the track in the incident we saw down in China Beach. Miroslav Juracek finishing 9th, and Dominique Bureau finishes 10th.
And in 11th place here for today, I predicted a top 10 on his recovery drive. He was just a touch short. Stephen Elson coming home in 11th. Bob Kern in 12th position. Ian Haycox unfortunately ended up having a little bit of a problem there at the end. 13th position. Tom Gradwell, he had his troubles in 14th. Jeff Jacobson 15th. Stevie Ray involved in that lap 1 accident. 16th. 17th could go Francois Van Dormeld. 18th Gary Wolbelt. 19th Edward Doherty. And 20th Nico Shook. And I'll go ahead and round it out here real quick for you, Joe. 21st is going to go to William Marshall, 22nd Andy Spicer, 23rd Paulo Preto, and 24th Wayne Palmer. And of course, we saw what happened to Richard Yallen. And 26th Joshua did not take the green.
We've got our winner ready to talk to us, Sven Demmel, and not sure how much he's gone and watched of the replay, but Sven, as it was happening, first lap, first corner, did you happen to look in your mirror after you got through it?
Yeah, while I was going through it, I was already looking, because Richard was right on my bumper, like even on my side going into that. And then I saw Jerry going for it and was like, okay, that's ambitious. The first corner here is so dangerous. They don't, like most series, don't even use like the actual start and finish line to start the race because it's so dangerous. And yeah, he overcooked it a little bit, touched Richard, and then there was just mayhem behind me. I focused on the ahead of me on the corner for a second, looked back as I was exiting it, and there was like cars going left and right everywhere, and I was like, okay, this race is done. I'll just ride for the rest of the race.
Yeah, it seemed like it. And speaking of which, what's your comfort in those situations, just kind of running by yourself up front? Because Adam and I were discussing, some drivers do very well when they have nothing to keep them focused, and some tend to do better when they have something to kind of keep them on edge. Are you pretty comfortable kind of being running by yourself for, what was this, 30 some odd laps?
Well, I prefer if I have like some pressure, because like it's just more fun and there's like a goal to go towards. If you're just hot lapping like I did today, it's definitely easier to make stupid mistakes, but I've done it a lot, and I think I'm like pretty confident and just riding, even though it's not very fun.
I think you'll probably have more people with you next week, because you're going to the Charlotte Roval, which is unfortunately pretty tricky in the SRF. I mean, do you like your chances there? Or do you think it's going to be a crapshoot for you?
I mean, this is obviously going to be down to strategy, luck, and just how you're able to manage the draft. Maybe fuel saving, maybe the run to the line at the end. It's completely different to all the other races. It's just purely draft. Pace doesn't really matter. I think you can gain like a second and a half there on the oval just drafting. So it's completely different to everything else we've done, and so that gives pretty much everyone in the field a chance to win this one, which is bad for me, but should make for an interesting and fun race, and should be pretty fun to watch as well. So I'm looking forward to it.
We are too. We've watched them race there before, and it certainly puts on some excitement. That was Sven Demmel, our winner here today at Mid-Ohio, winning by a whopping 30 seconds. Next up, Adam's caught up with Jerry McAreevy, who finished in second despite all odds.
Yeah, Jerry, I mean, lap 1, excitement right off the gate, and you end up having to make it just a whale of a recovery drive coming all the way back to second. But take us back to that lap 1 incident and give us what you saw in your seat.
Hi guys, just really it was a bad move, I think, on my part, a wee bit overzealous, and just drifted out a wee bit into Richard. So need to apologise to Richard. It wasn't my finest ever, but the recovery drive was quite good.
You know, and of course, it itself didn't have was not without drama during your recovery drive. Definitely a few battles along the way. But did you ever have a doubt in your mind you might be able to get back up that high, or did you think maybe you might be locked in the mid pack somewhere?
Well, at first I was thinking just get a top 10. That would be quite nice. Then a top 5. And I didn't think we'd have enough time to catch Adam, and something happened with the guys, and before I knew it, I was in second place.
Well, anyway, Jerry, hey, great run, way to come back. I mean, you know, I know it's a shame about what happened in turn 1, but you made up for it by fighting your way back through, and hopefully we'll see you next week at Charlotte.
Cheers, guys. See you later.
That was our second place finisher, Jerry McAreevy. And now we've got the last person from the podium, Daniel Sadro, with his third place. Dan, we speculated after qualifying that it's going to be a long day at the office for you, considering the championship situation. And then suddenly after turn 1, you're up in 4th place. I mean, what was going through your head at that time?
I had no idea what was going on. I thought it was going to be a very difficult race, and it was, but obviously I got 4 positions right there, and then it was just moving forward.
So the race then continues, and you were in the midst of that big fight much of the time between Tabor, Bradshaw, Murakami, and Reese before it all exploded. What was your goal once that happened? What did you think was realistic, or were you kind of in the dark about where you sat strategy-wise and pace-wise?
Well, I knew I was really 8th, 9th, 10th on pace. I was the one causing some of that explosion, and I apologize to James, and I apologize again. Just I braked early, but not early enough going into whatever that corner is, turn 4, and sent him across the track and kind of wrecked a bunch of people's races. After that, I decided to pit in. I thought I had timed out where I'd be on the track, and was even wrong about that. So it was just a very, very messy race all around.
Yeah, that is putting it lightly, and I wouldn't put it all on yourself, because everybody we saw was having trouble staying out of each other. What was it like driving in the wind at 23 miles per hour? Adam and I had our jaws on the floor. We couldn't believe just how windy it was, and I don't think we've ever seen a race like that on GSRC.
I don't know. I was not sensitive enough to the wind. I didn't notice if the wind was a problem, although it could have been. I was more troubled by the track temperatures, which were they were 35 degrees higher than most of the races I'd done this week, and that was making me slide around just crazily.
It's fascinating to hear that the wind wasn't having an effect from inside the cockpit. I guess such is the unique nature of sim racing, where you don't feel the physical effects of nature about you. But still, third place, it's not going to help you in the championship, but I assume it's some consolation today, Dan.
Yeah, it was a good result. I just kind of wish I had been cleaner about it.
I can understand. That was the number 51 of Dan Sadro, finishing third today. And that's going to close us up. Of course, before we close up shop, check out the Hallett Race Shop. You can find them at hallettracing.net. They are located in Oklahoma, and they even have a racetrack there. It looks very similar to what you see in their logo. I do hope to get out there at some point and get to see the track in person. Also, a thank you to iRacing for putting us on IESN. Make sure and subscribe to the channel once you get the opportunity. All you got to do is go to the YouTube page and click the red button. Thanks to the companies that provide the software and hardware for our broadcasts are listed here on your screen. Additional thanks to June Lalonde, who provides our wonderful music. See the screen for how to get a hold of more of her great work. And thanks to the team today, Adam, Amjed, and Dougie. If you'd like to find out more about GSRC, including upcoming races, you can find it at globalsimracingchannel.com. You can also check us out on social media. We're on Twitter at GSR Channel, Facebook at Global Sim Racing Channel, and Instagram at GSRC_Graham. As we mentioned, we're heading down to North Carolina. That'll be at the Charlotte Roval. That'll be Sunday, May 26th at 3:45 p.m. Eastern. We also have upcoming races for other series listed on the screen, so check those out and mark them down on your calendar. But until next time, race clean, race hard. We'll see you on the track.